Welcome to Book Buzz Spring Summer 2026. Welcome on Zoom. A lot of people I know from Wallingford who are not interested in coming out on this very sleety, icy crap day. Thank you all for coming in person. It's wonderful not to be doing this to an empty room. And to my friends who are also on Zoom and my husband, I appreciate it that you're tolerating hearing this. Okay. So a few introductory comments before we get going. Who's new? Who has never been to Book Buzz before? Wow, awesome. Awesome. Amazing. Okay, so a few quick, this is how this rolls. We're going to be talking about 20 books that are coming out between now and the end of the summer. And I've chosen those 20 from a series of genre handouts that will be over on that rectangular table over there at the end. And those of you on Zoom, most of you, I think, have electronic versions. Anyone who wants physical copies, come into the library. We will have them for you. The genres are literary fiction, popular fiction, mysteries, thrillers, historical fiction, beach reads, which is a spring summer special, other fiction, which is a catch-all, short stories and essays, biography and memoir, history and politics, and other nonfiction. Collectively, 611 books. So, which Julie Rio will tell you is way too many books. But the point of the genre handouts is that you can pick the genres that you actually like to read, and you can take those home and check off from them. Slightly more than 2/3 of the 611 are fiction. So slightly more than 2/3 of the 20 books that I've chosen to discuss are also fiction. I got really anal about that this time and just felt like I should do the ratios right. So you'll worry about the genre handouts later, and there's no extra points for taking a lot of them, and no demerits for taking none of them. Take whatever floats your boat. And if for some reason we run out, I think we have enough. But if you run out and you want them, just tell me and I will get them to you. The other thing I want to say is, and this is a very uncomfortable thing to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. 2025 was kind of a meh year for books. And there's a lot of nodding in the room, so you maybe know that. Just when I thought I was going to get through this without Patricia Dorenzo coming, she walks into the room. I think she needs a drink. I think she needs a drink first. Okay. What an entrance. I'm sorry you on Zoom did not see that. Have a seat. But Pat, please get a drink first, Pat. Okay. Trouble has arrived into the building. Talk about derail. You know, we were having a conversation earlier about which of the 3 sessions was the best one to go to. And some people think that the first session is the best because I'm supposedly the freshest, which is not true. The middle session is always the one that fills the quickest. I don't know why, but this is the one that's the most fun, as you already can tell. Okay, and I have been drinking. And I will keep doing it too. So if you've been here before, you know that there's a rhythm to the publishing year, and the September, October, and November books are supposed to be the really, really big books, the books that the publishers want you to buy to give as holiday gifts. And so normally the fall winter book buzz session in September is a bigger splash than the spring summer one. And when I was putting that together last fall, I was like, what, these books are not that, like, I'm happy to talk about that. I'm looking at the people who were here. They weren't bad, but they didn't have the sort of the wow factor that normally we have in Book Buzz. And I felt a little icky about it, but I didn't know what to do about it. But if I tell you that what's coming out in 2026 is so off the charts, incredible. It's because, if you're, I mean, putting people like, David Baldacci and Daniel Steele aside, who can churn them. If you're somebody like Barbara Kingsolver, for example, who's, Demon Copperhead was a really big book. She doesn't do that every year. So there's sort of a rhythm to this. And pretty much every author who I admire and read religiously has a new book coming out in 2026. It's crazy. It got to the point where I would see an announcement about a new book by some author I love, and I would start laughing because I couldn't believe there was yet another one coming out. So putting together these 20 was easy. Also, there are a ton of lists of most anticipated books of the year. They come out in December and January. All the reputable newspapers, I mean, the Washington Post did it before its book world went away, which is horrible. But the Times and the Times of London and the Guardian and Publishers Weekly and Kirkus and Oprah released, and Time Magazine, they all released their most anticipated lists. And the amount of overlap on those lists was staggering. Staggering. I mean, there's just agreement about these books. So those lists are longer than 20, so I had to figure out the right 20, but I think we're going to have a really good time tonight is the point. The other thing I want to say is that so we're talking about spring and summer, putting the weather aside. Meteorologically, March 1st is the first day of spring. And so we're going normally, and US publication date is Tuesday. I don't know if you knew that, but books come out in the US on Tuesday. So today is the first day of this publishing cycle for the books we're talking about. If you're James Patterson, your books come out on Monday, but we'll put that to one side for now. And normally we would be going from the first Tuesday in March to the last Tuesday in August. But September 7th is Labor Day this year, as we were talking about earlier. And that's really late. And that means that there's an almost entire week of September before Labor Day. And I am going to demonstrate to you my insanity by telling you that I obsessed over whether books that are being published on Tuesday, September 1st belonged in the spring, summer book buzz or the fall, winter book buzz. And I asked a bunch of people at the library, and they were like, oh, well, and I was like, I don't think there's a right answer to this, except that if I decide this, Julie Rio will tell me that it's the wrong one and it should be the other answer. So what would Julie do? The answer is that Julie would do the opposite of what I chose to do. So I put them in here because see, she's wrong, right? Because anything before Labor Day is summer. Because anything before Labor Day is summer. A good question. It's a problem because Labor Day is so late. We were talking about that, and we have talking about a couple of dates. It'll be a little late because it'll be after Labor Day is the answer. Right. There's another reason. So none of them are there are some very good books coming out on September 1st, I think, but there's probably 6 or 7 in the genre handouts. It's obviously the last book because they're organized in chronological order by publication date. And you'll see them, but it's just a weird quirk of the calendar. Okay. What else do I want to tell you? Tons of books about America's 250th birthday. The History and Politics handout is filled with them. Oddly, 3 books about Marilyn Monroe because she would have turned 100 on June 1st. Wow. So 2 in biography and 1 in other nonfiction, a photo book. 3 books about the World Cup because in case you have missed it, it's coming to the Americas. 2 in other nonfiction, 1 in history. And for some odd reason, a ton of books about birds. Birds are happening. So in the other nonfiction handout, a ton of books about birds. On the fiction side, a lot of time travel. Time travel is very popular right now, and several books set on cruise ships. So there must be some escapist thing going on, and we will talk about a couple of those later. So I think that's all I wanted to say to begin. Oh, one more thing which you will notice. Celebrity book clubs have become super important. Books that otherwise would maybe not get a lot of attention suddenly get a huge uptick if Reese's book club or Read with Jenna on the Today Show picks it. And all of those book clubs announce on the first Tuesday of the month to have the full month to read the book and discuss the book. So there's the publishing, a lot more books come out at the beginning of the month. They're just trying to hit it. The only book club that doesn't care about that is Oprah, because she just doesn't pay attention to the monthly cycle. She just announced Kin by Tiari Jones as her new pick. That came out last week. So late February, a very random day, but she doesn't care. Several people emailed me and who had gotten the handouts for the Zoom and said, "Where's Kin?" And I said, "It's a February book. It was last time." And they're like, "Oh," because it's getting the play now, but it was February book. So anyway, so you'll see an emphasis in the pub dates on the early part of the month. That's it. All right, that's all. Julie and Barb are the Vanna Whites for the evening, and they're going to hand out the coveted 20 notables that we will be discussing. And this is embargoed until now. She's my boss. Are you Rachel? Rachel, you have the PowerPoint ready? Okay. Okay, so people on Zoom, Rachel is sharing her screen with you, and there you will see the covers of each of the 20 books as I talk about them. If you want the notable 20 handout, if you're in the area, come in and we'll give you a copy. If you want a PDF of it, I can email that to you tomorrow, or it will be also up on our website. So it's easy to get. You ready? Okay, everyone, so 2 choices. You can just hang out. We could just hang out and I'll watch you look at the handout, or we can talk about it. See, only half the faces actually went up. They're just staring at the handout. They don't care. Okay. Book number 1. What? Yeah, it's pretty, right? Book number 1, because James Patterson, I know. Book number 1, Just for My Sins, is a book by James Patterson, because I couldn't not do this book. It's Judge Stone, and it's written by James Patterson and the great Viola Davis. And it's coming out on Monday, and it's in the popular fiction handout. Every single genre is represented in these 20 books. I made sure to pick at least one book from every genre handout. So there's something for everyone here. I don't, but it was not hard to do this time. And I think that that's good, because we're covering whatever everyone likes to read. Okay, so there's been the blockbuster authors have been busy partnering with blockbuster non-authors to write books. So James Patterson very famously wrote 3 books with Bill Clinton, and Bill Clinton's wife Hillary wrote a book with Louise Penny. And last time we talked about Harlan Coben partnering with Reese Witherspoon to write God Before the Goodbye, which was one of the 20 notable top titles and did very, very well. So Patterson is up the ante by partnering with Viola Davis. And this book has a 1 million copy first print. And when I tell you that see, Susan is laughing. The typical book, not the typical James Patterson book, but the typical book, not self-published, regular, published by a regular publishing house, sells 3,000-4,000 copies. That's a solid representation for a book. A handful of books sell more than 10,000 copies. That's the world we live in today. And so if they're they're printing 1 million copies to open, that means that at least 1 million copies of this book are going to get sold without, they're not even worried about it. So that's a big deal. There is no, I promise, there are other very high publishing numbers on this list of 20 books, but nothing like this. And Viola Davis, I should say, in addition to being an Emmy and Tony and Oscar winning actress, also has a Grammy for the audiobook recording of her memoir, Finding Me, which was really good. And so she can write. And there's a lot of expectation that this is going to be a really good book in English. Great question. And before paperback, in hardcover, 1 million copy first print. This book is about a judge named Mary Stone, who is on the circuit in a small town in Alabama. And she draws a case, and it's set in the present day, about a doctor who has performed an abortion on a 13-year-old girl. So the law in Alabama is very clear, but morally, of course, it's more complicated. And this is an incendiary case. And it's about what happens. So not only does it have 2 blockbuster names behind it, it actually is a super topical, really interesting, not some, Russian spy hoo-ha, but an actual kind of current events, real. So the expectations for this book are off the charts. Okay. I should also say, please interrupt me. Some of you already know to do that, but please interrupt me if you have questions or comments, and please get up to I know, I'm not worried, to get more wine, to get more food. Amy tells me we've got a bunch of open bottles. We need to finish them. So you might as well have at it. Okay. Book 2 is Apple, the First 50 Years by David Pogue. This is coming out next Tuesday. This is in the other nonfiction handout. David Pogue, people know who David Pogue is? Yes, right? No. If you watch CBS Sunday Morning, you know he's a correspondent for CBS Sunday This Morning. He's actually won 7 Emmys for his work on CBS Sunday This Morning, but before he was on CBS Sunday This Morning, he was the tech columnist for the New York Times for 13 years and did a series of Nova Science specials for PBS. I think 20 of them. He's really good, and he really knows he is quirky, but he knows his stuff. So that's David Pogue. On April 1st, 1976, I should say that some of us in the room are going to feel very old by some of the things I'm going to say tonight. And this is the first thing. Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs founded Apple 50 years ago, April 1st. Yes, there's wincing going on in the room. And probably there's some wincing going on Zoom too. And I am an Apple person. I'm an Apple fan. But there are things I didn't appreciate that we have Apple to thank for, like the mouse, for starters, laser printing, Wi-Fi, digital video, home networking, and of course, touchscreen phones. 2.2 billion iPhones, 700 million iPads. Crazy. And of course, with a very iconic design. So this book is deeply researched. He interviewed 150 people, including Steve Wozniak and John Scully, and a bunch of the old guys, but also the people working there now, talking through all of sort of what went on behind the scenes and what the challenges are for the company going forward. And it has an 125,000 first print, which for a tech book is very, very high. So there's a lot of expectation around this book, and it's an iconic company. So 50 years old, unbelievable. So book 3 was supposed to come out last fall. And I really was looking forward to talking to you about it last fall, and then it got pushed. So now we're talking about it today. Kids, Wait Till You Hear This by Liza Minnelli, coming out next Tuesday. This is in the bio and memoir handout. This is the celebrity memoir of the season, bar none. There are other good biographies and memoirs in that handout, but this is the one. 550,000 copy first print. She reads the audiobook. Oh, and Viola Davis is doing the audiobook of Judge Stone. I should have said that. On March 12th, Liza Minnelli will turn 80. I know. And 80. Yes, she's a young'un. She's a young'un, Pat. Still young. This is her first and almost certainly her only memoir. She has her right. Kate just said, I'm surprised she has that many memories left. She goes there. She goes there. Okay. So this is about what it is like, what it was like to be the only child of Judy Garland and Vincent Minnelli. The professional, she's also an EGOT holder like Viola Davis. The professional highs of that, her personal highs at Studio 54 and whatnot, 4 marriages, several miscarriages, stints in rehab, the whole thing. She has led a very complicated life. This is written in an as told to her friend, the singer Michael Feinstein. So it's going to have that kind of conversational style. Somebody said she was on the cover of People or in People. By the way, People's book coverage is very good. I could be snobby about this stuff, but I have to say their book coverage is very good. So if you're interested, that's there. But so this is a lot of expectation around this book. Yes. And I don't know why it got put. I mean, now it's coming out 2 days before her 80th birthday. So they may have just decided that was a better. I don't know. I never know. You can only the documentary last year. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure you can find it if you look for it. Any other questions about that?
I was saying, this is the one where she criticizes Lady Gaga.
Yes. So Lady Gaga's in here. Halston, I think, is in here. There's probably a lot of spilling the tea and name dropping in here, I'm sure. So if you like celebrity memoirs, this is your book. Okay. Book 4 is The News from Dublin by the great Irish writer Colm Toibeen, coming out on March 31st. This is a short story collection. So in the short story and essay handout, we think of Colm Toibeen these days as a novelist. If you were here a couple years ago, we talked about Long Island. His latest novel, which was an Oprah Book Club pick, was the sequel to Brooklyn. Those were 2 very, very big selling novels. He's a brilliant writer, very lyrical, very Irish. But he has been writing short stories for a very long time, mostly published in the New Yorker. And he hasn't put together a collection in 15 years. And this one is getting a lot of buzz and attention. These stories are set predominantly in Ireland, Spain, and the US, all places where he lives. And they are about people living away from home. So whether that means that, they grew up here and now they live here, or whether they're temporarily away from home, but it's about what that is like, about family, and about feeling that your life has sort of gone away from the path that you expected it to take. An early reviewer said, Toibeen is an author with incredible empathy for the human condition. And these stories will be a perfect read for anyone who cares about the short story form. So, I mean, I read him. I'm a completist. There's several authors on this list I'm a completist about, and he's one of them. So, okay. There are a few books on this list that are very hard for me to talk about without grinning. And this is the first one. This is American Fantasy by Emma Straub. This is coming out on April 7th. We're going to be talking about a lot of books coming out on April 7th. And this is in the Beach. This is the Beach representative. If you like beach reads, this is the book I picked. I almost put this in literary fiction because she kind of writes literarily. But the subject is so beach that I moved it into beach. So we wrote, the book club read This Time Tomorrow, which was a time travel novel, so good, about really a father-daughter relationship novel, but a wonderful time travel novel. She's written 7 best-selling novels for adults and 3 for kids. I recommend Modern Lovers in particular, if you haven't read her. And The Vacationers was an early one about a family going on vacation in Greece that's terrific. She owns a bookstore in Brooklyn called Books Are Magic, that I actually think has 2 branches now. She's terrific. She's great. She's great. So I haven't been able to talk about it without laughing. So let me, so this book is about a newly divorced woman who's pushing 50. Her name is Annie, and she's not in a really great place in her life. And her sister talks her into going on a 4-night Caribbean cruise on a ship called the American Fantasy. Also on the ship today, let's assume, are the members of a 90s boy band, X decades older, and 3,000 other screaming midlife women who were major groupies when in the 90s. Okay, that's the setup. And I just start grinning from ear to ear when I think about it. It feels like joy in book form to me. This is the one of the most anticipated read blurbs. These mega fans croon old hits, sip drinks on the Lido deck, and bask in the tropical sun, deferring midlife crises over a long weekend of spicy adventure. Come on, come on. For people who live in Connecticut, Emma Straub is coming to RJ Julia on April 8th, the day after the book comes out. A tremendous get for the store. She will be in conversation with Beatrice Williams, the great writer of historical fiction. I'm pretty sure that event will be at the church on the green, not at the store. And the last time I looked, it was not sold out. So April 8th, I recommend. Okay. A field trip to Madison to meet Emma Straub. Okay. The next book is The Ending Writes Itself by Evelyn Clark. This is also coming out on April 7th. It's the mystery book representative of the 20. And Evelyn Clark is a pen name for 2 writers who are friends, both Scottish, V.E. Schwab and Kat Clark. So V.E. Schwab, you probably know, she wrote she has written a slew of successful novels, but the most successful was The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Her last novel, which I think came out just last year, was Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. Kat Clark writes mostly YA books. She also is an editor and a screenwriter, and they're friends, and they just decided on a lark that they would write a book together, and it's showing up on every list. And it feels like sort of a modern version of an Agatha Christie, and Then There Were None kind of mystery. It's set on an island in Scotland where a very successful thriller writer named Arthur Fletch lives in a castle, as you do. And six young writers who are commercially challenged, which means they're not selling, are invited to his castle, and they show up and they sign non-disclosure agreements. And then they meet with Arthur Fletch's agent, who tells them that Arthur has died, and that the reason they're there is that his last novel in his epic best-selling thriller series is unfinished, and that they're each given 72 hours to finish it. And the best one will get $1 million in a publishing contract. That's the setup, okay? Soon enough, the contest morphs from a battle of wits to cutthroat competition, darker and twistier than the secret passageways honeycombing Fletch's castle. Dun, 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 dun. People are very excited about this book. Okay, you know, Audrey Hepburn has been dead for over 30 years. I know. But she's still, she's an icon. She's an icon still. And there have been several biographies on her, but this one is significant. It's authorized and it's co-written by her son. So this is getting a lot of attention. Intimate Audrey by Wendy Holden, who's a successful writer of celebrity biographies, and Sean Hepburn Ferrer. This is in the bio and memoir handout, obviously, and coming out on April 7th. So her son brings in, you know, photographs, family photographs that have never been seen before, and also shares excerpts from her letters. So it's going to be a much more complete and moving biography. It runs through her childhood, growing up. I did not realize how close she came to dying during World War II because of her malnutrition. And through her becoming not just a screen icon, but a fashion icon as well. And then her work for UNICEF as a Goodwill ambassador, targeting children in famine and war-stricken areas of the world. So, you know, an early review said that it's a wonderfully readable book. You keep turning the pages, delighting in being in the company of this charming, beautiful, and generous person. So I just think there's a lot of Audrey Hepburn fans out there still, and it just kept showing up on the list, so why not? Okay. The next book is the nonfiction book. I knew you'd be grinning. Susan Gomes is grinning from ear to ear. The nonfiction book of the spring, for sure. London Falling by Patrick Radden Keefe. This is in the other nonfiction handout. It's coming out on April 7th. So Patrick Radden Keefe is first and foremost an investigative reporter for the New Yorker, but he writes, his reporting is obsessive, and he writes with almost a novelistic kind of momentum. You're reading it and you kind of can't believe you're reading nonfiction. He has incredible moral clarity about really hard subjects. So that's quite a package. His last two books have been leaders in their field. I think it's safe to say Nothing About the Troubles in Northern Ireland is really now viewed as sort of the go-to book if you want to understand about the Troubles. And The Empire of Pain basically took down the Sackler family and exposed their contributions to the opioid crisis. And they went after him hard about it and failed. They lost. The Empire of Pain stemmed from a New Yorker article, and London Falling also stems from a New Yorker article, which was published in 2024 and went viral. So he went deeper and turned it into a book. This is about a 19-year-old young man named Zach Bretler, who lived in one of those fancy new high-rise apartment buildings that have sprung up in London along the Thames. And he was seen on surveillance cameras jumping off a terrace from presumably his apartment into the Thames and killing himself. And his grief-stricken parents were dumbfounded, devastated by this, obviously, but also dumbfounded. And when they started trying to understand what might have prompted him to do this, they discovered that he was posing as the son of a Russian oligarch, which stunned them. And that turned out to be sort of the tip of the iceberg of a story of corruption and of a zest for power and for wealth. And so his reporting sort of exposes this incredible criminal underbelly underneath London's very sophisticated polish. Elizabeth is like, oh, I'm going to London next week. I don't know how I feel about it now. No. So that's why I mean, the story is gripping, but what they discovered as they peeled back the layers on this young man's apparent suicide, was startling. And that's why the article went viral. And that's what the book is about. This has a 300,000 copy first print, which is very, very big for a book like this. Okay. Thank God, thank God.
You got it, Chuck.
I'm gonna just a moment, please. It's actually from Center Street. It's from Center Street. I can't remember what it's called. Allie, do you remember? Lucky 19. Lucky 19. Cheers. If we can commission them, to make a beer for Book Buzz, right? Wouldn't that be good? Okay. They do. Center Street Brewing has a book club called Books and Brews. They will be discussing our One Book, One Wallingford title on April 7th, or when the date that all of these books we're talking about comes out. That's open to the whole community, and we are buying the first round as a present. So anyone who's interested, please come. Yeah. Okay. The Wedding People by Allison Espak, in case you missed that somehow. Okay. This Land Is Your Land by Beverly Gage is the book I picked from the History and Politics handout among all of the 250th anniversary birthday related books. Beverly Gage is the John Lewis Gaddis Professor of History at Yale. She teaches 20th century US history, so she's great, but there's a couple reasons why this book is here. The first is that her last book, her biography of J. Edgar Hoover called G-Man, won the Pulitzer Prize for biography, won the National Book Critics Circle Award for biography, and was on the best books of the year lists of the Times and the Post and the Atlantic and the New Yorker, and it was the biography of the year. So this is her next book, and people are paying attention to it. But the subtitle of this book is A Road Trip Through US History, and this is what she does. She's picked 13 places that are tied to 13 key moments in the history of our country, and she visits them. And these are places that if you were taking your children to want them to understand or if people were coming to America from another country and wanted to learn about America, these are the places that they would go. So she starts in Philadelphia, for example, and she winds up, and I'm really interested to see how, at Disneyland. So I'm curious to see what she's weaving in on Disneyland here, but and she literally drives across the country and visits all of these spaces and takes us with her and looks at what these places represent and how we tell these stories about what has happened in our country and how we feel about that. So this is getting a lot of buzz and is in a very interesting way in. Okay, Yesteryear by Cara Claire Burke is the next book that I can't talk about without laughing. This is the debut. I think this is the debut novel of the season. It's coming out on April 7th, and it's in the other fiction handout. It has already been, it's already in development to be made into a movie starring Anne Hathaway. So even if you didn't know anything about what it was about, that's notable. And it has a 250,000 copy first print, which for a debut novel is a big deal. The expression trad wife, you all know what that means? Okay. So Yesteryear is about a trad wife named Natalie Heller Mills. She lives on a farm in Idaho called yesteryear. She is married to a cowboy whose father is a US senator. She has 6 lovely children. And in her farmhouse kitchen, she churns butter and she bakes and she crafts. And out in the farmyard, she feeds the chickens and the other livestock. And she has millions of followers on social media. And she posts pictures against the back, of her beautiful children against all of this. And it's so wonderful and so wonderful. And it turns out, of course, that in the background, there are nannies and an industrial modern kitchen behind the farmhouse kitchen, and a family her husband's family is very interested in politics and political ambitions and all of that. And okay, great. And one morning, Natalie wakes up and it's 1855. This is the part that I can't. It's 1855. And she's cold and she's hungry and she's kind of dirty and she's on a farm in Idaho. And her husband is her husband, but he's a little different. And her children are her children, but they're a little different because it's 1855 and she's churning the butter, right? So she remembers. It's not like she doesn't remember that when she went to bed last night, it was 2026. So she doesn't know whether this is some reality TV stunt or a prank of some kind. She doesn't know what's going on. And that's what the book is about. So this is about consumerism and ambition and social media and celebrity status, and probably most of all about what it means to be a woman in 2026 in America. So lot of buzz about this one, a lot of interest. Okay. The next book is the second book in the History and Politics handout. It is called The Future is Peace, A Shared Journey Across the Holy Land, co-written by Aziz Abu Sarah and Maoz Imam. This is coming out on April 14th. Abu Sarah and Inon are co-CEOs of a nonprofit called Interact International, which is dedicated to Middle East peace, to building bridges, to fostering understanding and creating a future where coexistence and peace are possible. Both of them, they're friends, and both of them are tour guides in the Holy Land. Abu Sarah was 10 years old when his 19-year-old brother died from injuries that he received under torture in an Israeli military prison. And Inon's parents were trapped in their house on October 7th, 2023, when Hamas burned it to the ground. So they both know intimately what this Middle Eastern conflict is about, and they refuse to give into it. They are on a mission to convince people that peace is possible and that waiting for the next generation is the wrong approach. And they are the real deal. Pope Francis embraced them fully while he was alive, and they've already had an audience with Pope Leo. And they're going to be here talking about, not here, but in the United States in the spring, talking about this. The book is a week-long expedition through the Holy Land, meeting people, talking to them, and what they encounter when they do that. They said, we do not see ourselves as Palestinians and Israelis or as Jews and Arabs, but as human beings who believe in fostering a culture of dialogue, a culture of forgiveness, and a culture of peace. A very important book. Okay. I need a problem. Too many glasses. Okay. Who's Catherine Stockett? Oh. The Help. You get a free drink. This is the book Todd wants. Okay. Okay, that's the one. Right. Catherine Stockett wrote The Help in In 2009, which is incredible to me that was 17 years ago, 17 years ago that The Help came out. It sold 15 million copies, which I could not believe when I saw that. It was on the New York Times bestseller list for over 2 years. Obviously made into the movie, which helped its success a lot. Movie won an Academy Award. She got a fair amount of criticism for her portrayal of the Black women in the novel. She has said recently that she does not think she would have been able to write that novel today, and that the success of the novel and the criticism all helped to make it hard for her to write the next book. And the Calamity Club, which is this, and is this thick, is coming out on May 5th. And so this is, so this is called an advanced reader copy. So just publishing houses have library marketing teams, and those teams do webinars on a very regular basis promoting their books. When this book got promoted on a webinar, the representative from the publishing house held up the ARC and said, I've got one and I'm willing to send it to somebody on the webinar who wants it. And before she finished talking, she had an email from me that said, this is a book I will highlight this book at, I would have highlighted it even without being able to hold it in my hands, but I said, I'd love to hold it up in my hand. And she put it in the mail the next day. So it's pretty sweet. I have to tell you, I have the best job in the world. Okay, anyway. It's very exciting. The to be read piles are very high. Yes. Okay. So obviously it doesn't really, this is a big deal. She's a mega successful author who hasn't written a book in 17 years. She has a new book. She did stay away. She seems to have very deliberately tried to stay away from racial stuff. So this is mostly about white people, but she's back in the South and she's back in the past. This is set in Oxford, Mississippi in 1933. There is a feisty 11-year-old orphan named Meg in an orphanage that would do Annie proud. It's a miserable place. The woman who runs it is miserable. And she becomes friends with a woman named Bertie who comes to visit Oxford to see her wealthy older sister and to try to bring some money home for her mother and grandmother. And she gets roped into helping out at the orphanage and meets Meg, and it's about what happens. And of course, the Great Depression is very relevant and all of that stuff. This is an ARC. I didn't meet her. I just was sent it by the publisher. The publisher didn't sign it. It's just, and Carolyn's husband, Todd, said, please, could I have it and read it? And I said, yes, but I have to have it for all, so I'm going to give it to Carolyn. Okay. A lot. 6. Oh, it's not large print. I would say over 600. Okay, hold on.
Mirror. Yeah.
632.
Oh my God. Did you know what I said? I said 630.
Very good. Very good. Okay. All right. All right. Finally, we have come to some literary fiction, and there will be several books in that genre handout to come. John of John by Douglas Stewart is coming out on May 5th. Douglas Stewart wrote in 20. So Douglas Stewart is Scottish. He lives in New York, and he was a fashion designer for many years. And in 2020, he published a novel called Shuggie Bain, which went on to win the Booker Prize for fiction that year. And we can debate this, but I feel that the Booker Prize is the most prestigious English language novel fiction prize that there is. To win it for a debut is kind of a big deal. And Shuggie Bain was a very dark novel about a young Scottish, poor Scottish young man, boy, really, trying to figure out who he was and a path for himself. And it was hard. It was a hard novel. People love raves, great sales, all that stuff. He followed it up with a novel called Young Mungo, which to me, and I think for a lot of people was good, but it was similar. It was too similar to Shuggie Bain. So people were like, oh, maybe he's one note. But John of John is different and showing up on all the most anticipated lists. It is about a man who is at art school in Scotland. He grew up in the Hebrides Islands on the Isle of Harris. His father is a very conservative, very religious, sort of dour lay preacher, and his grandmother is this feisty, potty mouth older woman, and he's been at art school, and his grandmother is ill, and he comes home to take care of her. And when he's home, he has to sort of reckon with his relationship with his father and his life. And I am told that it is not as dark as his first two books. But this is about family, this is about masculinity, and this is about the pull of home. And these are his themes. These are the things, and he does very, very well with them. And there's a lot of excitement and anticipation about this book. Okay, there are a couple of novelists on this list that whatever book they write, they're going to show up. I mean, I just partially because I feel that way, but partially because I know the kinds of books you guys like to read, and partially because that's how it is. And Elizabeth Strout is one of those novelists. So if Elizabeth Strout has a new novel, it would be really, really weird if it were one of the 20 notable titles. And she has a new novel coming out on May 5th called The Things We Never Say. This is in the literary fiction handout. We've been spending a lot of time with Elizabeth Strout in the Olive Kitteridge and Lucy Barton world, mostly in Maine, sometimes in New York. And when her last novel, Tell Me Everything, came out in 2024, I told you that I thought it was her swan song for Olive Kitteridge and Lucy Barton. And I don't know that to be true, but The Things We Never Say is not about them. And so it may be that she's done with them. The Things We Never Say is about a 57-year-old. Okay. Sorry on Zoom, there was a very strange sound that came across the ceiling just then, and we all had to have a moment. Okay, Artie Dam, D-A-M, is a 57-year-old history teacher in Massachusetts. He is very well liked by his students. He's successful. He's happily married. He and his wife have an adult son. They have a good relationship with him. Everything is peachy, except it's Elizabeth Strout, so that's not true. Underneath, Artie is a mess. Artie has lost his sense of purpose. He doesn't understand where he is in the world, what he's supposed to be doing with his life. He's actually really in some genuine despair. When he learned, and I don't mean to make this sound dramatic, I just can't find out more than this. He learns a secret. I don't mean that in a thrillery kind of way, but he learns something significant that sort of upends his life. And he has to decide what to do with what he learned. So I don't know what that is. We could conjecture about that. I'm sure that's not going to be leaked before the book comes out. This is an early review. Strout will always make ordinary lives feel urgent. This is a new, poignant, emotional look at relationships, conversation, and feeling less alone in the world. I mean, sounds like her. Okay. The Midnight Train by Matt Haig. This is coming out on May 26th, which is the day after Memorial Day. It's in the other fiction handout, and it has a 500,000 copy first print. So the Midnight Library, yes, the Midnight Library. Not quite as impressive as The Help, but 14 million copies sold. Another couple of years on the New York Times bestseller list, including at #1. A book about do-overs, about having the opportunity to go back and redo something in your life. And everyone in the room is nodding. I bet you on Zoom, you're also nodding. I have things that I would love to go back and redo. I am sure you all do as well. And that kind of thing really speaks to readers. So this is not a sequel. It's being advertised as the second installment in the Midnight World series. So I think he's imagining books that play with that idea in different ways. Here, instead of a library, we have a train, and we have a man on the train who is able to go back to revisit places and events that were significant in his life, but he is not allowed to interfere with them. Not because it would change the path of his life, but because it could change the path of other people's lives, which he's not allowed to do, which is a very interesting spin on this idea. And you know, you can ask, well, then what is the point? What is the point? But of course, there is a point. And you have to read the book to find out what the point is. But that's what the Midnight Train is about, and it's obviously expected to be a huge bestseller. Okay, so Maggie O'Farrell is an example of an author for whom I am a completist. And I appreciate that it's easy to say that if you encounter a novelist when she or he is just starting out, right? And then every so often they write a novel and you can read it and you can just keep up. But it's hard when you find someone who has 10 books under their belt and you have to sort of go back and catch up. And I've been lucky enough to be reading her for a long time. So normally a Maggie O'Farrell book would be notable for me, but not necessarily make this list, except that she wrote Hamnet. And Hamnet was my personal best read of 2020 and went on to win the Women's Prize for Fiction. 2020, Hamnet was 2020. And of course has been turned into a movie, and she wrote the screenplay for the movie, and it's winning all kinds of awards and will probably pick up a few more at the Oscars. And so that has shifted her profile and made her known in a different sense. And so now a new novel by Maggie O'Farrell is more of an event. Like Hamnet, this is set in the past, and so I could have put this in the historical fiction handout, but she is so literary in her writing that I put it in literary fiction. It's coming out on June 2nd, and it is set in Ireland in 1865, which is 15-ish years after the Irish potato famine, or the Great Hunger, as it was known there then. And it is about a man and his son who are working for the Ordnance Survey to map the country. But what they're really doing is documenting the aftermath of the famine, which ravaged the Ireland for so long. The England, because right, you knew the answer to that question before you asked me. You just wanted to make me say it. So she says this is inspired by her own family history and is about a country trying to recover from a cataclysm. That's her word. It's about a man trying to retain his sense of history, both personal and universal, in the face of colonization. I'm too far gone to say this word. Thank you. And political upheaval. It's right. It's An early review said that this is about the need to grapple with the ground on which we stand in order to build a future. And it promises the kind of sweeping yet intimate tragedy that O'Farrell does so well. So 1865. 1855 is yesteryear, is when, no, 1865. Okay, the last book that I can't talk about without smiling. What is this on the cover? Don't say a knife. What is this? Psycho, right? Everyone knows instantly. Thank you. Right? That's it. Everyone does this. Okay, how long has it been since you've seen the movie? Long time, right? Who said a couple years? Really? Really? Okay. When does the shower scene take place?
First 20 minutes.
45 minutes in. Everyone thinks that. It takes place a full third of the way into the movie, but it's what everyone thinks is what, right? And the whole first third is about Janet Leigh, is about Marion. She, she was on the run. She had stolen money from her employer to help her boyfriend pay off her debts. So Leah Rowan, who is a debut author, she's like, what is her story? Like, we don't know anything about her except that's super interesting in fact. And by the way, Psycho is based on a book that was published in 1959. In 1959, there was a woman on the run for stealing money to help her boyfriend pay her debt. So that's an interesting woman, right? So Leah Rowan decided to play with that. In this book, Marion is today, works for an advertising company in Manhattan. Her sister, who lives in upstate New York, is in an abusive relationship. She steals money from her employer to help her sister get away from the abusive relationship and is driving upstate, but she has to spend the night at the Bates Motel. She's in the shower. And Norman pulls back the curtain and she knees him in the balls, grabs the knife and stabs him and kills him. Amazing. Okay. So now she's a thief and a murderer and she goes on the run. That's what this book is about. Right? A bloody tale of female rage, an ode to the bonds of sisterhood in all its forms, and one of the smartest retellings I've had the pleasure to read. So this is the thriller. This is from the thriller handout. That is coming out on June 2nd. A very
time to kill off early in the film, right?
well, right, because you assume she was right. So now she gets her due. Okay. I am going to own my Ann Patchett bias. I'm just going to own it. But there is no way you can give me a hard time about including an Ann Patchett novel in the 20 notables, okay? Whistler by Ann Patchett. This is in literary fiction coming out on June 2nd. One of the most anticipated lists opened this way. The literary force of nature, also known as Ann Patchett, is back. Okay? It's not me. I didn't write that. It's not just that she is one of my favorite authors writing today. I have read every single one of her books going back to The Patron Saint of Liars. Again, I picked it up in the 1990s and have been reading her ever since. But it's more than that. I mean, obviously, her books are very, very successful. But her bookstore, Parnassus in Nashville, has become one of the leading independent bookstores in the country. And she has become such an advocate for books, for reading, for independent bookstores here and abroad, that she has just become it's much more than just an author. I mean, her store has a foundation that raises money to send books to Tennessee public school children. when Nashville was shut down by the ice storm, she paid her employees even though the store was closed. She didn't say this. One of her employees came on the weekly new books video and said it. And said, Anne won't say this, but she's been paying our salaries and paying for us to stay in hotels if we can't be in our houses. She's just, and she's a dog person. She's just the package. She is, but she's here also because she's a fabulous writer, and we love her books. Whistler is about a middle-aged woman named Daphne, who one day is strolling the galleries of the Metropolitan Museum of Art with her husband when they notice that a sort of an elderly gentleman seems to be kind of stalking them, which is weird. And they realize that that elderly gentleman is a guy named Eddie Trippett, who, when Daphne was 9 years old, was her stepfather for a year. Her mother married him when she was 9 and divorced him when she was 10, and she hasn't seen him in decades. But during that year, he was impactful in her life, and they reconnect. And it's about that. She said in an interview that I was missing a very close friend who had recently died, and in missing him, I imagined what life might have been like if we were two different people in a very different relationship. Nothing that happens in this book happened to us, and we are not these people, but all of the love is there, which is a very Ann Patchett kind of thing to say. An early review said, it's absolutely going to make you cry and probably make you feel a little better about the beauty of human experience in the process. And it has a 500,000 copy first print. I'm sorry, Susan. She is coming to RJ Julia on June 9th. The event was posted on Friday, 2 Fridays ago, and sold out within hours. And that's saying something because it wasn't free. You had to buy the book to attend. It's a tremendous get. She's opening up, but this is also at Symphony Space on the Upper West Side with Amortolls on the 2nd, and that is also sold out. But she's going on tour, and she's a rap. Yeah. Okay. Two more books. This is another Smiley book. Villa Coco by Andrew Sean Greer is in the other fiction handout coming out on June 9th. Andrew Sean Greer is known for his 2 books about Arthur Less and Less is Lost. Less won the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction in 2018. He writes very charming, very funny novels about very fallible people kind of floundering their way through. But this one seems to be really hitting a chord because it's, again, showing up on all the lists, and I was a little surprised about that. But since I like him a lot, I was happy. This is about a young man. He's a 21-year-old archivist, which means he can't get a job. And he gets hired by a 92-year-old baronessa named Lizabetta, but known to her friends as Coco, who lives in a crumbling villa in Tuscany.
I'll take it.
Right? And he's hired to archive her art and her artifacts in her villa, but of course he's really turns into sort of an all-purpose factotum, kind of running around doing whatever she needs him to do, which turns out to be dealing with the guests that stream into the villa all the time and fixing all the things that are broken, and ultimately, which is really her goal, finding her great lost love so that she can reconcile with that love before she dies. I mean, 92. This book captures the allure of La Dolce Vita, Renaissance paintings and books, bottles of Lambrusco wine and gelato, all bathed in a buttery Tuscan light. I put it in other fiction, but it's a fair question. I probably could have put it. He's a little too sophisticated for beach read. But it sounds like a perfect summer read, doesn't it? It does. Okay. the final book, it's always good to go out strong, is Cool Machine by the great Colson Whitehead. This is in literary fiction, but it could have just as easily been in historical fiction or thriller or mystery. It's coming out on July 21st. This was, I have to tell you a little story, because I'm going to use someone else's words to describe this. So February is a lot because in addition to putting Book Buzz together and the regular book clubs, there's Hibernation, which I love. It's an extra book club that we do in the winter. And I love Book Buzz. I love all of it, but it's a lot. And this winter has been hard. And last week with the blizzard and the half days, and it was a lot. As Megan knows, I was stressed. And so by Friday afternoon, I had sent out all the confirmation emails and I had finished printing the genre handouts and I had vaguely started figuring out what to say about these 20 books. And I was kind of at 3:30, I was kind of done. And I went down to the staff room to have an apple and I pulled up my phone and I pulled up the weekly Friday video that Ann Patchett's bookstore does called, if you haven't read this, it's new to you, where if she's in the store, she recommends a backlisted book. And if she has a guest author in town, that author does it. And if she's not around, then some of the staff members do it. But it's very effective because, right, here's a book from 10 years ago or 40 years ago you might not have read, and it's a good piece. And I'm sitting there like this, and I'm watching the video, and she's holding up Colson Whitehead's Harlem Shuffle. And I sit up like this, right? And she says, first thing she says is that nobody touches Colson Whitehead. He is the genius of our age. Wow. I went, and I remembered that when Nickel Boys won the Pulitzer, her novel Dutch House was a finalist for the Pulitzer. And she went on her video on her store and she said, Nickel Boys won because it was better, which is incredible. She's not wrong about that, by the way, but still, the genius of our age. And that the Harlem, so there's 3 novels in this Harlem series: Harlem Shuffle, which came out in 2021, Crook Manifesto, which came out in 2023, and now Cool Machine in 2026. I was looking for it last summer and it wasn't there. Harlem Shuffle is set in Harlem in the 1960s. Crook Manifesto is the 70s and Cool Machine is the 80s. Think Ronald Reagan, think Bonfire of the Vanities, think New York in the 1980s, right? 3 very different decades. These books are about a furniture salesman named Ray Carney who lives in Harlem, married, in the first book, young children. His father was a crook. His father is dead. He wants to just be a furniture salesman and make good. But he does a little fencing on the side and he gets drawn into some pretty heist crime. These are crime caper novels. And so that's what they are. And by the way, you need to read the first 2 before Cool Machine comes out. And you have plenty of time, okay? So Ann Patchett says, I don't read these. I'm thriller, these kind of crime caper thriller books, not my jam. She said, but it's Colson Whitehead. So she said, part of your brain, I typed this exactly what she said. Part of your brain is thinking that this is an unbelievable thriller. I mean, honestly, there's a scene where a guy is holding someone hanging out a window. Okay. There's a lot of guns. These are right. But the books are so beautifully written and every single sentence makes you stop and rethink everything you knew. They are so incredibly constructed. It's like the best writing ever, but with a thriller compulsion that makes for an extraordinary reading experience. She said she just finished Cool Machine, because if you think I get ARC, she really gets ARC. She announced that it will be, the store, like RJ Julia, has a signed first edition book club. It's the August. She's announced that it will be the August signed first edition book, and she thinks he should win his 3rd Pulitzer Prize for it. So I don't have to tell you anymore, because she said it, and it was a gift to me. An early reviewer said it was a modern classic of the crime novel genre, and it's Colson Whitehead, and he is the genius of our age. And those are your 20 notables for the spring summer of 2022. It's a wow. It's a wow. It's a wow. It makes you want to go home and read a book, which is what you should all do. Okay. I feel bad about saying that. And I read a lot of the books that were in them. And this,
I remember when he first won stuff
yes,
like that.
they weren't there. These writers don't churn them. They don't churn them. And if there's a cycle to this, and we're just lucky, we're just going to have a great year. That's it. We're going to have a great year.
Yeah.
Okay. So you on Zoom, you get to play too. And Rachel, if there's anything, you'll tell me. Ann Patchett Bias Society is the best. Paula, you are so right. Right. You know what you need to do. You need to, I said this afternoon, I said, imagine that the 20 books are up along that long table in the back of the room, and somebody like went, are they there? Are they there? And I'm like, no, not really. They're all up there, and you get to go home with one. You get to go home with one. Which one do you take home? Yesteryear. Yesteryear. It sounds right. Land. Yesteryear, another yesteryear. Marion, you're going to take both of these? I think I promised, Marion. I'll email you when I can. I promised it to someone else first, but I'll give it to you. I know. It sounds so fun. Awesome. Awesome. And Villa Coco. Cool Machine. Right?
Dublin.
News from Dublin. Calm Toy Bean. I know. Villa Coco over here. You have one? The future is peace. Whistler. I know. I don't know what I would do. I would try to grab them all and run out the door. Any questions? Any comments? Okay. Talk to me afterwards. I honestly, I do love her, but I don't love I could rank them. I would never do it. So it depends. So we can talk about it. Anything else? Okay. All good answers, because they're all great books. They're all great books. Everyone here, thank you so much for coming, and please get home safe. Take the genre handouts. Thank you on Zoom.